Thanks. This one moment, we've been talking with Mr. Rick, and he's going to be a interior designer based out of New York. Is it New York City that we're based out of?
Yes, New York City.
All right, fantastic. And mutual friend, one of my old bosses, Paul White, was able to hook us up, and he's going to give us a few minutes and kind of talk about the interior design industry. I'm really visual, so I love interior design. I love magazines. I do all sorts of things, but I know nothing about the practical application of it. So I'm always impressed when you guys can take an idea and actually bring that into reality. What did you do before you got into interior design?
I spent 30 years in the retail industry as a visual merchandiser.
Wow.
And just interior design was something I was always interested in, and kind of started doing it as a hobby, actually.
Wow, fantastic. And how did you transition from that into becoming a professional interior designer?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. About 7 years ago, I decided, as I continued to get more and more clients, I realized the importance of getting my degree. And so about 6 years ago, I decided to go back to school and get my degree. Just, I really want to be able to give the clients the best possible experience. And, as we all know, it starts with education.
Right. And do I understand correctly, do you do mainly residential? Do you residential and commercial? Where do you like to spend most of your time?
Yeah, my heart is in residential.
Awesome.
It's that home base that's really, really important.
And a lot of people, including myself, like when you get started with a project, I don't know how that begins. So when a client contacts you, what are some of the beginning stages that you're beginning to do to start that conversation to understand what their ideas are?
Beginning, I find that sometimes it's easier for some people to say what they don't want as opposed to what they do. So for me, the most important aspect in starting the project is a really in-depth interview with the client. Or any, whether it's a husband and wife or a couple with children, everybody needs to be a part of that conversation, because it has, the project has to reflect all of the occupants.
Right.
Whether it's a 1-year-old or whether it's a 40-year-old. People are living under that roof, and it has to be functional for everybody.
Is there, without giving away industry secrets, is there anything that once you get that kind of beginning to formulate an idea, starts to crystallize, is there anything that you start to draw inspiration from? Any tools that you use, or ideas or processes?
What I noticed, one of your questions was just about inspiration. And whenever I start a project, I love to have something that belongs to the client. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but whether it's a photograph or, perhaps a pillow cover that they like, even magazine articles that they have found to be inspiring. Cool. And I keep that with me during the project, because it's a connection to always, I think I do a great job of putting the client first, but just having that object, no matter what it is, just helps me ensure that whatever decisions are coming down the pipe, that it always goes back to that client.
I love that idea of having something personal, because I bet once everything comes together and kind of ties that, I bet that's a real strong emotional connection that people have.
It is. I find it very important.
Is there any common myths that people think about interior design or hiring interior designers? Any common questions that you usually get?
I think one of the biggest myths is that it's too expensive. I think, and I think especially in the past 10 years, particularly, there's been such, a standard of keeping everything very sustainable. And I think it was a conversation that, it's been going on for 20 years now, but you know, like I told a client, you know, this isn't a trend anymore.
Right.
This is how we have to, it's how we have to work.
How to do business. Right.
It's
Exactly.
just how you do business. It's exactly.
And I like you mentioning that as far as the cost. Sometimes people think that it's going to cost more than it does, because sometimes I equate that to, you know, hiring professionals is always going to save time, and time is money. And I kind of equate that to, you know, changing your own oil. Like there's some people who like to change your oil in their car. Like I know nothing about cars. I know about computers and some other things, but
Right.
so I could try to do that. But not only the monetary cost, but the time cost for me doing it versus hiring a professional, usually almost always comes out ahead by getting a professional like yourself to take that idea and bring it into reality and all the different tools and channels that you have to draw from.
Right. I mean, also, I know that, you know, I think a lot of people think the industry is just about matching colors or choosing fabrics. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people just don't realize the problem solving that goes into a project, whether it's a powder room or an entire home. And then I think that's where, you know, I've heard it so many times, you know, people make the wrong decision or they don't think of something, and it costs them much more to solve that problem, as if they would have hired a professional to begin with. That problem probably could have been avoided.
Exactly. And you mentioned problems, that also transitions in kind of what I wanted to ask. So if you could think about, is there any product you can think of that maybe didn't go as originally planned, and then how did you come to overcome the obstacles to get it back on track?
You know what? I was doing a house out on Fire Island, and it had about 5 pieces of custom furniture. And it was one of my first forays into custom furniture. And quite frankly, it was my mistake, but a very expensive piece of furniture was incorrect. And once I discovered it was my error, you know, I called up the client and apologized. But you know, it happens. You know, we're all human. We're not robots.
Exactly.
And you know, unfortunately, I think the worst thing is that, you know, in that second, I feel that they lost a little bit of confidence. And the only thing that I could really do is, you know, I paid for the mistake, and you know, just reordered the furniture at my cost, which they certainly appreciated. But there's not another option.
Right. No, what's great about that is that by taking ownership early, that's what I found. You can head off those problems, because we are all human. And then what they were going to remember is the end product, which is fantastic, and all the enjoyment they're able to get from it. So, and
you really hit it on the head. It's like you know, it's not a pleasant conversation, but you know, it has to happen. And just, you know, I work for myself. I sometimes have another person, but you know, the buck stops here.
Right. Exactly.
You know, it's a small firm, and it was me. So, yeah. But you know, I think to your point, you know, in doing so, you know, the project ended fine and it on a good note. But I think had I not done that, or beat around the bush, or not looked at it head on, you know, I could see the project coming to a halt, unfortunately.
Exactly. Well, that's a sign actually of a professional in all aspects. So I appreciate you doing that. If you could just remove all constraints and barriers, like what would be a dream project or dream client that you would love to do?
You know what I would love to get my hands on is a yacht.
Oh, now you're talking.
Pardon me?
I said, now you're talking. Those are some of the magazines I spend way too much money on each month.
Oh my gosh. One of my favorite things that I really love in design is economy of space. And yachts and airplanes have always inspired me, because it's just so functional. I mean, it can be very beautiful, but I love the idea of stowing away things when not in use, or, you know, a coffee table becoming a dining room table,
Exactly.
I love that convertibility. So a yacht, I would love to get my hands on a yacht.
I agree with you. And being
Yeah.
visual, and I say I have nowhere near your skill, but being visual, and also having like a little bit of an engineering background. One thing I'd love is both the, like you said, the functionality, because everything serves a purpose there, but still being able to make everything visually beautiful, taking into account weight, movement, like all those sort of thing. And when those plans come together and seeing those interiors, I love that as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely love it.
if you, I know we have to kind of, social distancing is a word and kind of have to do things a little bit differently, but how have you kind of pivoted to still serve clients in a personal way?
You know what I've been doing, and it's such an obvious thing. I'm making a lot more phone calls right now.
I
You
realize
know,
that too.
we
Yeah.
we have, I think we've become so used to email,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just as guilty of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I would much prefer a phone call
Mm-hmm.
or FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how I've been keeping my business personal. You
I
know,
agree
I
with you.
want, it's kind of twofold. On one hand, we have much more time,
Mm-hmm.
so even things that everybody wants yesterday, and so the business has, and I keep it. I'd like to keep it kind of focused,
Mm-hmm.
but because we do have so much more time, I'm suggesting things that in a typical 6-month time frame,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. So I'm providing a lot more options, but just in communication, I'm picking up my phone.
I agree with you.
I
And something I
I
wouldn't,
just
like 4 weeks ago, I would have never thought I'd, because I'm a tech guy as well. And I know systems. I was talking about email, but yes, picking up conversations and using the phone more is something that I've agreed with. That's something that I never thought that would be needing to do, but it's a great way to connect when we can't stay
yeah.
connected.
And then I think FaceTime. I think because everybody um, might be freaking out. I think just having even this, just seeing someone's face, having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
it's the next best thing.
Exactly. So
You
it's a
know,
it's a hard question, but if you had to nail down what does home mean, what does home mean to you?
oh my gosh, it is everything, and that's one of the reasons why I really transitioned into this career. Growing up, I moved around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We never had a family home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then so just being able to create that for my clients, just it really does mean the world to me. I know it's cliche, but home is where the heart is.
No, that's
Uh,
exactly right.
and when I can contribute to someone's home, making it functional, making it beautiful, making it work for everybody, it makes me so happy. It
Right.
just makes me happy.
Getting high significance and high response from that from your career. That's one of the things that makes what we do fantastic and gives that good
Yeah,
feeling came back.
absolutely.
Second last question. So when we can get done with all this, what's the first place you want to eat or go do once all this is
Oh
all
my
done?
God.
What are you missing? What's
I
a restaurant
I
or
want to
experience?
go. There's one of my favorite Mexican restaurants, Arriba on Ninth Avenue. I can't wait to hole up in there with some enchiladas and a pitcher of margaritas, baby.
Well, you said Mexican first thing. I'm like, oh, real margarita. That's one of the things I
Oh my
love.
gosh. Yeah, I love it. I typically have it once a week,
Hmm.
but it's something I can't cook
Hmm.
at all.
And even
So
if to
I
go,
have
it
to
doesn't
go
work out
out.
the same. When you go out, even to getting it to go, I've got to go a couple of times of local places here, and it's just not the same. So I hear you
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So
It's
last one. So if clients want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
my phone number 347-922-0837. My email is rlbarton@mac.com,
Awesome.
or they can reach out to me on Facebook.
Fantastic. And what I'll do once we're all done is I'll work on getting some links in the description so people can take a look at it as well. So thank you so
That's
much, Rick, for
fantastic.
taking a few minutes to talk with me.
Key, thank you so much for doing this and keeping us all connected.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for talking. Bye-bye.
I appreciate it. All right, be well, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.